There's a gentleman, his name is Andrew Tate. You don't have to like him, but you have to respect his ability to command attention and focus. For a period of time there, he became the most searched person on the internet. And here's something that's brilliant about what he's done.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Matt Gray Show. I feel super lucky to have Chris here today, and truthfully, I know I'm not the only one on my team that's excited. All the designers and creatives on my team were thrilled to hear that we were having Chris on the show. He's had an amazing impact on my life, an amazing impact on the people that I work with as well, not only their lives, but their careers. And I'm extremely excited to be able to dive into the tools and the systems that Chris has created. So thanks so much, Chris, for being here today.
Thanks for having me on the show, Matt. My pleasure.
Awesome. Well, to dive right in, a lot of people that I work with, a lot of the founders I'm working with in Founder OS, oftentimes come to me with this kind of self-limiting belief, thinking that there's a trade-off in life between, you either sort of do what you love to do, but have to sacrifice getting paid for that, or you do what you can be paid for, but you're not going to enjoy it. And I think you're a shining example of someone that's been through your career journey and not only found the intersection of what brings you joy, what brings you energy, but also something that you can contribute to the world and get paid for. And you're not only living that yourself, but also then helping, with a vision now of helping 1 billion people actually find that intersection for themselves as well. I'd love to just hear a little bit more about your journey, sort of finding your reason for being and how you're going and helping others find theirs.
Absolutely. Matt, I believe this, and there are maybe more than 2 schools of thought, but I'd like to reduce it down to two to make it a little bit simpler to understand. There are people that were my parents and people that are older than their generation who had an operating system about figuring out how to do the responsible thing, to go do the 9 to 5, to clock in and to play it safe. And there weren't a lot of other options. And part of that plan was to go to university, get a degree. The higher the degree, the better the university, the better opportunities that you have. And you do that until you're about 65, then you retire, and then you get to enjoy your life. And with a lot of things happening in the last 20, 30 years with the advent of the internet, social media, there seems to be an abundance of different kinds of opportunities. And when we speak to younger people, especially millennials, they now are more in tune with the things that give them joy. They're less concerned about having material things. And when polled, at least in a survey form, they will eagerly choose to do something that has meaning and purpose to them than to do something that makes more money. They're learning to live with fewer things, and it's in trend with what's going on in the dematerialization of things. And what I mean by that is, we now pay more to have fewer things. The iPhone, it's only this big, but it's replacing a camera, a GPS, maps, a pager, a web browser, a laptop. It replaces so many different things, and we're willing to pay more to have less so that we can have better experiences in our lives. So I think the culture is already moving there. Whether we want to agree to that or not, it's already moving there. So here's the real challenge then. To find things that give you joy, that spark your inner curiosity, the things that make you get out of bed, that propel you forward versus to push you. And I think this is a really interesting phenomenon for all of us to solve, whether you're 12, 22, or 99 years old, to find work that you love, that gives you meaning, to give you purpose. And when you find that, to figure out a way to make money from it. And so there's the thing that I'll refer to as, I'm working on this. It's still kind of a new concept. It's called the 3 M's. The first part is mastery, to have put in your 10,000 hours to be able to have learned how to do something that you're skilled at. And this is very important and in a step that we cannot skip. So many people see young people achieving things online, and most of it's not real. And then they start to tell themselves, I can skip all the steps. I don't actually have to be good at anything. I can live a great life, but I think you have to have mastery over some skill. Now, what is that skill? It's not like what it used to be. It's not like a four-year degree in undergraduate studies in Bachelor of Arts or something. It could be in copywriting or social media marketing. It could be in building sales funnels or something like that. And once you have mastery, you move to the second part, which is understanding that all companies with only one employee, become media companies. That's the second M. To understand how to use and capture attention to create media. We're all publishers of content. We're all media companies. And when you can do that at scale and build the tribe and community around that, you get to the third part, which is to monetize. So begins with mastery, it goes into media, and then you can start to think about monetization in that order. Sometimes we get the order mixed up and it causes a lot of grief for us.
I love that. So yeah, the order of going from mastery to media to monetize. And so when someone's, they find themselves maybe in a venture or working for someone and, they're burnt out, they're not enjoying it, and they want to move towards really finding what brings them joy. Oftentimes I'll point them to the framework of Ikigai, right? And helping them find their intersection between, what they're good at, what they can be paid for, what they genuinely enjoy doing, and what the world needs. And is a useful framework to then finding sort of what's that center intersection of these four quadrants that is going to allow you just to jump out of bed in the morning and find a job that, you're not looking at the clock day after day, that it's something that, genuinely brings you joy and is kind of your greater purpose and what you can contribute to the world. I'm curious, what's been your journey of finding your personal Ikigai?
I did what many people who are at my age. I'm 51 years old this year, right? So I did what I thought was the right thing, and I found that was not a good fit for me. I did not excel in the engineering computer science space. That was what my older brother was very good at, and I couldn't even get into the schools that I applied to for that major. So that was the world telling me, who are you trying to kid at this point? It wasn't until I found design that I started to find some direction and got some traction. And this is the first clue to everyone: when you could do something without a lot of effort and you seem to do it better than other people who are trying real hard, it's a really good clue. So you could be an amazing skateboarder or a BMXer, or maybe you do like cross-point stitching, or I don't know what you do. But if you do that and you're like barely trying and you're like, oh my God, I'm smoking everybody, that's a good clue. What happens is we get really we get that adult voice in us and say, that's irresponsible for us to do. That's not practical or pragmatic. Who's going to ever pay for this? And you kind of silence that voice inside of you for a little bit. And I'm not sure that that's a healthy thing to do. That's society imposing a very specific framework on you. They say that people who are successful, people who do well, who are respected in society, don't do things like that. But that inner creative voice, and you need to fight all those external voices so that creative person can be allowed to explore and find something. So when you do things that give you joy, that you do with relative ease, where you lose track of time, is a pretty good indicator as to what you should be doing. So once I found design, I went to design school. I started to excel. I started a design company. And for 20 plus years, I grew that design company to making multi-million dollars every single year. And I got a lot of creative and financial reward from that. But that was only one half the equation, because I was still showing up, doing work for other people that was fulfilling to me to some degree, but didn't serve the larger need of 1/4 of that equation from the Ikigai, which is, what does the world need? The world does not need another commercial or a music video. We have to be honest with ourselves when we say, like, yeah, it serves a very specific purpose, but it's not elevating humanity. No one ever stayed up late at night thinking, wow, that commercial really changed my life. Rather, not in a positive way, at least they could say that commercial really annoyed me, and it's irritating. I have to keep seeing the same ads over and over. So when I was able to dovetail teaching, my other passion, with my expertise in entrepreneurship and my love for design and production, then I started to find my Ikigai.
I love that. So you have your, love for design and this passion for teaching, and kind of merging those to find your real reason for being. Now, as you move on to then that second pillar of figuring out this media piece, how did your journey then go on to sharing your journey with, thousands of people and now millions, with the vision now of helping 1 billion people find that intersection of, doing what they love and making a living? How do you kind of think about that media piece yourself? And for those out there that are maybe struggling to get started, what do they do?
Okay, I think it is sometimes misleading to look at what somebody's doing today and assume that that's the way it always was. Yes, we do have a decent sized following now on different social platforms, but just remember, everybody that's great today started out somewhere not dissimilar to you. There was a time when we had a couple thousand subscribers to our YouTube channel, when we would be thrilled to get a couple hundred views per video. And that was exciting for us. That meant 200 or 300 people were excited to see it and were showing up on a regular basis to watch our videos. And we should not take that for granted. Somebody told me this before. I don't remember where I saw it or heard this, but if they say if you have 1,000 or 2,000 followers who show up pretty regularly, to your Instagram content, to your YouTube or your LinkedIn posts. Think about how many humans that is inside a space. That's a lot of people. That's enough to fill a sizable church or a large auditorium. And we then sit there like, well, I'm not getting hundreds of thousands of, well, we became jaded pretty quickly. So what I want to do is to tell everybody, it's very important for you to learn how to articulate your thinking, your ideas, and your opinions to other people. But it's more important that you practice articulating thoughts because you gain clarity through articulation. That's a quote from David C. Baker in his book, The Business of Expertise. You gain clarity by speaking or sharing your ideas to the world. Articulation could be performance, interpretive dance. It could be music. It could be written words like you're really good with Twitter or Instagram, or it could be recording video on YouTube. You have to find a lane that suits you ideally. And we have to be really honest with ourselves. If you have an amazing voice, and let's just say you're not that good looking, do podcasts, do voiceover work. That could be just really fulfilling. You know, I listen to those people who have those amazing voices, like the trailer voice guy. I'm like, wow, what a skill that is. Just by opening your mouth, you're amazing. And some people are just very statuesque. They have high cheekbones and they just look good no matter what camera angle is being used on them. Well, if they're in that space where they're modeling or acting or being a public figure, they're using that to their advantage. So look at what your mama gave you, whatever religion you believe in, what God gave you, and just try to harness that because that is what makes you unique.
Yeah, no, I see that a lot with founders, and I'm guilty of it even in my own life sometimes. You know, you see someone that's so much further along the journey and you just want to get there now. And it's very similar to, you know, almost wanting to take the elevator to the 10th floor when really you just need to focus on taking the stairs and just focus on that process of just getting 1% better every day. You can't just fast forward and get to where they are now. There's a whole journey you're not seeing that's got them to there. I'm curious, you know, there's a lot of founders that I think deal with, you know, they know that they have a real mastery on a skill. They know they want to start building out their personal brand, building an audience, and building a community and a livelihood around it. But there are some of these limiting beliefs that they hold that keep them in this sort of action, sort of paralysis mode. I'm curious, you know, you're someone that clearly has, you know, you've taken the stairs, you've put in just the daily action for years now to build a very vibrant audience and a community, speaking globally. You've written a book, you have a YouTube channel of millions of subscribers. You know, what are some of these other limiting beliefs that you're seeing with founders and a couple strategies maybe to help them overcome those?
Yeah, this is going to be a big reframe. And I'm working on a series of ideas called the Paradox Principles. I think Paul Arden already wrote or already figured out the best title for a book. And the book is called Whatever You Think the Opposite. And I really believe that. Like, we think the path to getting our fame, fortune, and whatever it is we want in life is to take this express bullet train elevator up to the top and skip all the necessary steps. But I know this. People who are in love with the journey and the process will go much further and farther than people who just want the result. Because what happens is when you don't get the result that you want in the timeline in which you figured out for yourself, which is artificial to begin with, then you get frustrated and you get discouraged and then you stop and you try something else. And you can spend 5, 10, 15, 25 years of your life going from one thing to the next, never finding a thing that you're good at and becoming a jack of all trades and not being valued by the world. So I think what we have to do is take a big step back. So one of the paradox principles is big things start small and small things start big. I want you to think about that. I want you to process that. Okay, so what did I just say? Small things start big. I'll give you an example. The hope that most people have when they first start in content creation, whether you're an entrepreneur, a new graduate, or whatever, is you want that viral hit. You want the dopamine hit. You want the social credibility, the social proof of having a monster hit. And let's say, for whatever reason, everything is in alignment. The universe is smiling upon you right now. And that first tweet, that first video blows up like crazy. And you think you're going to be really happy. And the truth is you're going to become miserable. And I'll tell you why. So let's just think this through. Your wildest wishes have come true. You've got this monster hit. What are you going to do for an encore? What is the sequel going to be? And now you're going to stress out and you're going to do one of two things. You're going to make another video or piece of content that is exactly like the first piece of content and it could work. And then before you know it, you're pigeonholed into doing something that you don't even love and you feel trapped. Every time you try something new, your fans hate you for it. And you don't even love this. And now you keep showing up, forced to make this thing, or you're going to have to start all over again. So it's not even a thing that you want to have happen because there's going to be a period of time which you need to explore in relative anonymity to find your voice, the subject matter that you want to speak on, and your style of delivering it. And this should happen kind of in the cover of night so that people aren't overly examining examining what it is that you do and being overly critical and saying, you're stupid, I hate your face and I hate your voice, and don't you know that's not how you record video or audio? Yeah, I know, because it's my third video. Everybody chill out. So I think the way to go is to make the commitment to yourself that I'm on a journey of self-discovery, of personal development, and this is just my form of public journaling. And it's important for me to share my thoughts just so I can learn about myself. I was listening to a person, his name is Ask Vin, and he's big on Instagram now. He's got over 1 million followers, right? And Vin teaches people about public speaking and learning how to use their voice, because it's such a powerful instrument. He said that we all need to practice storytelling. And why is that? Because we need to have a strong story of ourselves so that when someone else tells us who we are, we have something to compare it against. So if you know who you are because you've practiced telling your story and you've gotten to know yourself, when someone says you're an idiot, you're a jerk, you're selfish, you're being greedy, well, that doesn't align with the story that I know about myself. So therefore, I'm not going to put too much weight and give this too much gravity. It's not going to tear me down. If you don't practice telling your story, if you don't know who you are, you're going to ride the high highs. You're great. You're an amazing person, Matt. Or you suck. You're a scammer. You're stupid. This is unreal. And you're going to ride between the highs and the lows, the peaks and the valleys. And that's no way to regulate your emotion and your state.
Yeah, no, that's a great example and a great way of looking at it. I think this idea of kind of going from, feeling like you need to produce everything to just more sharing your journey and documenting your journey of self-discovery is a beautiful way of kind of looking at building out your content, building out your brand. I was actually speaking to a creator with around 30K subs just yesterday, and he was looking at a lot of his videos and feeling pretty perplexed around his YouTube content strategy. He had a couple hits that had gotten, say, 1 million views that had brought most of his subscribers. But the truth was, similar to what you're saying, Chris, he didn't want to double down in that area and just become known for that content, and I think felt a little bit pigeonholed. Of recent, I've really been trying to get back into the foundations of like, why am I making content? And for me, it really comes down to helping people and helping people solve real problems that they have. And I think sometimes in the day and age we live in of followers and views and subscribers, we can get lost in just the root of it all, which oftentimes is inspiring and helping people. And so, I was talking with this gentleman, Tom, around, let's go and kind of survey your community and what are the problems that they're having. Let's put those into question statements and let the problems that they're having dictate sort of some of the content we're going to produce. We can find joy in that. We can find joy in helping people. And then at the end of the day, that's really why you got into this in the first place. I'm curious, right, as you're sort of building out your content strategy and you're across all these platforms, and you're super far along in your journey. I'm curious over the years how you've thought about building out your own sort of like content strategy.
I wish I could tell you, Matt, that there's this amazing 3, 5, 6 year plan on our content strategy. I'm much more reactive in terms of like how I do content. It's not planned out very far. I think that's kind of important. I think one of the differences in the late night talk show hosts here in America between somebody like Jay Leno and David Letterman, and it's from what I can understand, is David Letterman would record a week's worth of content in one day, whereas Jay would record it every single night because he wanted to react and respond to what's going on, to be very topical and relevant, right? The audience can't tell, but they can feel something is a little bit off. Like, why isn't Dave responding to what just happened on Wednesday or Thursday? Because it didn't happen for him if he recorded on a Monday or a Friday. And so I think for me, the channel is evolving all the time as I'm evolving, and the channel is a reflection of me, where I'm at, my emotional maturity, my intellect, what I've learned and what I care about in this moment. So oftentimes people say, I remember when this channel was about design. Well, you know what? I decided I don't want to talk about design. So I'm going to move, and I'm going to do what I do because no one's paying me to do this. And that is my art form. And that's what gives me joy. So tomorrow, if we want to decide to go back to design, because that's what gives me joy, that's what we're going to do. And if people find that to be valuable and entertaining, they'll continue to watch. And if not, that's totally okay too. Because, we all grow, and sometimes we grow apart. Sometimes we grow together. And I think we have to kind of be faithful to that. So there isn't a giant media strategy or plan here. All I know is I look at our numbers and I ask my team all the time, what can we do better? What is working? And what direction do we want to go in? Right now, everybody's talking about AI, ChatGPT, how it's going to impact the industry. So yeah, we're going to be talking about that. We're going to dive deeper into that because we're feeling that as well. And we want to reflect the culture.
Yeah, I love that approach. So yeah, there's an element of it's less kind of written in stone. It's very much a dynamic, almost growing organism here that you're constantly kind of you're watering it a bit, you're letting it grow, you're
Yeah.
looking at some of the patterns of what's working, what's not. And it's more of it's a system, it's a process versus something that's like written down, solidified, and stuck to necessarily for a long period of time.
Yeah. So what I think people think about is there's this giant forest, and that the forest is always one type of tree and it's always going to be one type of density. But we know this is not the case. When you reach the edge of the forest, you're going to enter into a different topography, different water system, and it might be an open grassy plain. Who knows? Or it might be really rocky and barren for a little bit. And so I don't want to go there and plan my entire life thinking it's always going to be a forest. It's always going to be a desert. I need to be prepared to expect the unexpected and adapt to what's going on. The example is this. When I started out, we talked mostly about design and topography. And then as we evolved, I found that there were a lot of creative people who were saying to me, I know what to do with design. There are many resources out there for me to learn that better, faster, cheaper. And I accept that. Teach me about business, how to run a design business, because I'm not finding that anywhere. So then we're at the edge of one forest, at the edge of the circle. And now we realize there's a whole different world. And we start to make more content teaching people about how to run a design business. And to my surprise, there are a whole lot of people who started showing up saying, we really need this. No one else is doing this for us. So as I teach them pricing principles, negotiation tactics, and strategies, I feel great. But then we run into a new problem. And the problem is this, and you're pointing to it right now. And if people haven't figured it out, it's like, I can teach you all the tools in life, and you will not be successful if you do not believe that you could do this. So there's a belief system that I have to dismantle, and limiting beliefs, scarcity mindset. Those are the things I need to solve. And once I work through that, then people are asking me, well, how do I teach this to others, Chris? So now I have to okay, what's the next edge of the forest? And you're going to continue to grow and evolve, or you're not. And that's okay too.
Yeah, no, and I love that lens of, younger in my career, I oftentimes was so focused on outcomes, growing a business to this much revenue, or I'll be successful when I exit. And that constant chase of an outcome, while from the outside I looked maybe successful, inside I was dying. I oftentimes felt like I was a failure, wasn't doing enough, because the outcome is just a quick moment in time, kind of like the edge of the forest you just described. But along the way, there's this whole journey. And when you're so addicted to outcomes, that journey is just miserable. As I've gotten older, I've realized that building companies, much like life, is much more an internal game, and leadership is much more of a habit of mind. I'm curious, as you're kind of going and helping founders out there, you're helping designers build their business, what are some of those internal sort of mindset shifts, as well as habits that you think are important to instill to have that sort of grounded approach to entrepreneurship?
I think the thing that separates entrepreneurs from entrepreneurs is they do love the game. They just show up to play the game, and that's really important to them. That the money, the success, and the fame are just byproducts of the love of the game. They're there no matter what, and they find joy in that. And so I think if you're doing something as an entrepreneur that's not getting you out of bed, it's time to have a hard conversation with yourself to say, why am I doing this? Why does this matter? And sometimes your first, second, third stab at it isn't the thing that you need to be doing. And to be in dialogue with your inner child to figure out, when you were 3, 5, 7 years old, what is it that you love to do? And I'll give you the example here. When I ran my design studio, I got to a point in which I was starting to phone it in, and I started to feel a certain amount of pain showing up to work every single day. I was thinking and counting down the days into which I can retire and walk away from the business. If that's not a clear sign, I don't know what is. Right? When you are driving up to your own company, pulling up to your own parking lot and dreading that day, it's time to make a change. And I just didn't realize it at the time that there were more options available to me other than the path that I was on in that moment. And it took a couple external influences to get me to change my thinking around this and open doors that I didn't even know were closed. And someone, my wife, started to plant a seed in my brain, which is, I know you love to teach. Could you use your time better to teach more people? Instead of teaching 7 or 10 students at a time, is there a way to do this? And I didn't have the answer. And then my friend Jose comes into my life, and he's like, hey, shouldn't we try to start an education company together? I'm like, how does one do that? Well, I think the first part is just to build awareness. Let's get onto YouTube. And I was resistant to that whole idea because I'm like, I'm not getting on YouTube. So you can see, if you keep an open mind and you're attuned with what it is that gives you joy and makes you happy, then these obstacles or these threatening ideas actually aren't threats, but they're invitations to do something new, different, and bolder. And I'm so glad that my friend and my wife put those seeds in there, because they grew into this amazing garden that I could not have predicted where it was going to go. So part of the entrepreneurial journey is to remain curious, to keep an open mind to new things, and move in the direction of your fears. I'm testing out this concept that fears are actually roadmaps or blueprints. They're not something that you should run from, but run towards. Because every time somebody brings an idea that challenges you, that kind of offends you or hurts you a little bit, it's actually a good indicator that that is probably something that you need to address and resolve in your life, and until that no longer gives you pain. And for me, it was like public speaking, be on camera, and inventing a new business model and detaching myself from the old business model, which I spent 20 years building. So if you remain flexible and nimble and agile, these obstacles that present themselves in your life will not be seen as obstacles, they'll become opportunities. And I really believe that.
Yeah, I love that mindset. I think it reminds me a lot of Naval Ravikant, the idea of easy decisions, hard life, hard decisions, easy life. And similarly, following your fears, leaning into the discomfort versus running away from it. And I think that, when we look back on our life and we're doing the rocking chair test when we're 85, we'll be most proud of those moments that, despite of the fear, we still move forward towards the fire and sort of, stare it in the face and lean into those things versus shying away, backing down, and then living our life with wondering what could have happened if we had just overcome it and maybe faced those obstacles, faced those fears and risen to the occasion. I'm curious, I think these transition phases for founders and humans in general are just so tricky. They're things that we're never really taught how to navigate. And from your story too, it's interesting. I find it's also hard for humans to understand the opportunity cost with something. You may be working on a company that you've built and, it's going fine. It's putting money in the bank. It's not exactly, what you want to do. But it's what you're in that habit of doing it. And so you kind of just stick with it, not knowing that, if you had a more abundance mindset, there's actually 1,000 other things you could be doing that would bring you so much more joy, make you so much more money. You just kind of need to be okay with staring that transition in the face and, being curious and opening your mind to other opportunities. I'm curious if you have any other tips for people trying to manage those messy transitions.
I think that's a really good thing that you bring up there. And a lot of times we get caught into patterns and routines really quickly. And sometimes they're inherited from our parents in terms of hey, here's a business and we're doing really well. Don't you want to make all this money? And you just do that. Or it could be about a belief system and you get caught up in that. So I think it doesn't always have to be quitting cold turkey and making a hard 90-degree pivot. So I want to just explain how I was able to pivot from having a service design company to running an education and media company. And oftentimes people are wait, how did this happen? So there's the thing that you do right now that pays the bills, that keeps the lights on, that brings you some financial security. It's kind of important for you to maintain that, but for you not to put all of your emotional and creative energy into it so that you leave some room to explore something else. And so for me, having run this service design company for 20 or so years, at that point, it was going to run itself. Now, left unchecked, it will run itself into the ground, but there's a period of time where it can run by itself with the team that I have in place while I work on the next thing. So during our management meetings, which we'd have every month or so, I would tell the team, your job isn't to make a ton of money. Your job is not to lose money. That's it. If you can maintain this, you'll help me to build runway while I build another company. And when we're ready, we're going to have this transitionary period where anybody and everybody is invited to join me on this new venture. Now, of course, this scares people right away, right? Because they're saying Chris no longer cares about the main mothership, how we make money. And so some people quit. They didn't quit on the day, but they did quit eventually. And I can tell because they didn't see a future in this other company. And I get that, a fear-based mindset. I got it. But once we were able to establish a second company, it's kind of like a fader on a mixing board where you're switching from record A to record B. And it doesn't have to be this hard thing. It could just be very gradual. So it took us about 2.5 years to figure out the business model, to make sure there was a good product market fit, and to build a customer and audience base such that when we decided to make the complete switch, it wasn't so scary to do. And so that messy middle doesn't have to be as messy and as crazy as you think. I often advise entrepreneurs who have a job, and it's a good paying job, where they're like, oh, Chris, I'm going to quit. I'm going to put in my notice. I'm like, oh, hold on. How much runway do you got? If you don't have more than 6 months runway, I suggest you enter into a very lean period in your life where you get rid of every expense that you don't absolutely need. And there's lots of stuff that you don't need. Sell off everything that you don't use and love on a daily basis. And then make sure you're living as frugally as possible to extend your runway. And then commit to the next 3 to 6 months as to making as much money as you can in your business while you're trying to spend as little, so that you can extend the runway. In the meantime, worthwhile to send out little trial balloons, set up a web page, start to work on crafting your message and creating an irresistible offer, and see if you get any takers. For a period of time, it'll be very difficult because you'll be essentially working 2 jobs, your day job and your passion job. So keep working on that until you get some proof that the market wants this, needs it, and then you can make that jump and you'll have the runway and you won't be stressed out of your mind.
Yeah, I think that's a important note there. Like, I related a lot to, you're almost like Tarzan on a swing in the jungle. You know, your existing vine you're swinging on is your existing job. You're going to eventually go and latch on to another vine in the jungle, and that's your new transition that you're making to either starting your own thing or your next thing. And then, you know, eventually, slowly, you're going to swing to the other and gradually let go of the other. And I think, you know, it can feel uncomfortable, but, you know, yeah, if you're managing a runway properly and you kind of just develop the mindset that, hey, it's okay, this period may feel a little bit weird. It may feel like I'm managing quite a few things. You know, I don't think people talk enough about that stage, but it's an important one that many of us have gone through. And yeah, you don't want to be making any just rash decisions to quit if the runway's not there. You've obviously built a number of businesses now that are, you know, in some respects running on autopilot. You know, you've built systems on them so that they can scale. You've hired great teams of people and gotten the right people in the right seats. What are some of like the core systems that you think often get ignored when founders are trying to put their businesses on autopilot?
Very good question. First of all, you need to make sure your operations are in place, that you have a good sales and a marketing team. Those are the 3 critical parts. So you need to have a marketing team so that there are new leads coming in all the time. You need a good sales team because those leads have to be converted from warm interest to hot to purchasing. And once they're sold, you have to deliver on the goods. And so you need a good operations and a production team. And if you have those 3 parts in place, they don't all have to be excellent, but at least you can run the company to a degree in which you don't have to be hands-on and you don't become the bottleneck for everything. One thing that I practice is deliberate incompetence, right? Like, I know how to do lots of things, but if I do all those things, basically everybody will give me all of their work to do. So I want to practice deliberate incompetence to say, you know what? I don't know how to set this email server up. I don't know how to write this marketing campaign. Can you do this? And then people do. And you give them space to explore, to learn, fully realizing, accepting that they'll never do it as good as you. And that's not the point of hiring people. They will do it their way. And if they're 80% of what you would do, that's 80% more than you would have done by yourself. And so if you hire enough people, the sum of everybody's effort and input will be greater than yours. And I want entrepreneurs to get over this idea, right? Because a lot of times people will not delegate their workload to someone else because they keep thinking, I'm the most capable of doing this. When you can say that and it's real and it's truthful, it means you're hiring lower quality talent. This is where Guy Kawasaki talks about this. He says, A players hire A players. B players hire C players. They hire people worse than them because they don't want to be shown up. And so they just inherit more work. Or the third thing is you just don't pay enough money, so you're not really attracting the right kinds of people. And the last one is a mindset thing, which is, do you truly believe, given any specific task, you are the only and the best person in the world to do this? Probably not. My designer friends struggle with this concept. Like, you're a good designer. Are you saying there's no designer that is better than you? Well, I'm not saying that. Well, you're good at illustrating. Are you saying you're the best illustrator? No, I'm not saying that either, but you act like it. So why don't you go out there and find the best designers and illustrators to work with who don't want to take on the risk of entrepreneurship, don't have that drive, but are excellent and have mastery over their skill. Why don't you hire them? Give them a great paying job, treat them well, give them a lot of autonomy, and everybody wins in that way.
Yeah, you bring up an interesting aspect that I think a lot of people struggle with too, which is, you know, to use maybe a specific example, you know, we all want to go and hire the best, you know, and we want to go and hire those A players. Early on though, when you're just getting started, oftentimes it's difficult to hire that caliber of person. So for example, you know, you may be starting off, you're building your business, you're seeing all these amazing brands being created by maybe some of your favorite branding agencies. And you're like, that's the kind of brand I want to have. And I know the kind of people I want to do that, but I got 20K in the bank.
Right.
I'm curious, with that specific example of, you want this kind of high end brand, but you're at where you're at with only 20K in the bank. How do you kind of navigate that decision given your resources?
There are two options that you can do. If you're a good practitioner and you're a good teacher and entrepreneur, what you do is you hire someone who has a lot of potential, but is raw and unrefined. And they're like that diamond in the rough. And you bring them in, then you coach them up. So together you can do something that's really good. They'll get you 70% of the way there. And through coaching or just you getting your hands in the work itself, you can get it to 100%. Let's take copywriting, for example. You can say, you know what, we need to create a campaign to market this company. I want you to go back and I want you to write up 100 headlines and I want you to write a couple different strategies and just go through that. And you give them feedback and say, okay, I love these. None of these are working. Let's try again, until you get to that place where you both can see like, wow, that's really good. We love that. So that you only have to step in and intervene at very specific points in time and allow that person to explore and come up with ideas. The two of you can work together. If you're strapped for cash, I recommend doing it that way. There's a different way to do this though, which is to say, as the entrepreneur, you're supposed to take all the risk. Because as Peter Drucker has said, all profit comes from risk. So what I would do in some instances, I would say, I need to hire that company. They're going to make more money on this job than me. In fact, I might not even make any money at all because I'm just going to buy the talent. And people would say, well, that's irresponsible as an entrepreneur. You're supposed to run every job profitably. I don't think so, especially when you're starting out. If you hire that company or that person that can do this work at a very high level, and it's a gamble, keep in mind, they knock it out of the park for you. You got two things going for you. Now you have definitive proof that your studio, your company, your agency has been able to do work at that A level, which you've always admired. You just bought the talent for a very affordable price at this point. And you get to say, especially if it's a name brand person, we got Jane Smith to work on this. We have that reach and we can pull out the best artists in the world to work with us, the best writers, the best editors, and the composers to work with. That's the kind of talent pool I'm working with. And so those become tools or things within your arsenal to be able to go out and sell better. And if you continue to do this, what you're going to do is you're going to continue to trade up until you can work with the Nikes of the world and be able to have a serious conversation with them and show that we have ample evidence and proof that we can do this and play at the highest levels.
Yeah, I love that way of looking at it. I mean, at the end of the day, the profits come from taking risk, and every decision you make as a founder is a bet. And our job is you make those bets, and sometimes you just need to be bold and stare it in the face and kind of make those bets that you believe in to kind of level up. I'm curious, as you've been building the future, and I really, really resonate with this vision of helping 1 billion people find what they love to do and make a living from it. What are maybe, one of those bets that stand out over the last few years that's been a bit of, something that kind of, made you shake in your boots maybe a little bit, but, you made the bet and it was a bit of an inflection point or something that really paid off?
Every time we have a flat year where we look at a revenue and compared it to the previous year and we're not really growing by much, those are times in which you're going to see me make some big moves, right? So what happens is, and I learned this from my business coach, is that we think business and entrepreneurship is a kind of a linear graph that if you just keep doing what you do, you're just going to keep going up. But in truth, it looks something like you're going to have a little bit of like that hockey stick growth, and then it's going to flatline for a while. And what gets you to the next level isn't doing the same thing over and over again. As that expression goes, what got you here won't get you there. And this is the mistake that a lot of entrepreneurs make. They just try to grind and squeeze out every single thing that they keep doing well to see if they can get to that very next level. You can't. It's a whole nother game. Different levels of competition. You need to hire different teams. You need to think and behave differently. So we have had many moments where we go like this and we flatline, and then we try something else, and then we have another growth. I'll give you a couple examples. Let's talk about content for a second. I remember my internet friend at that time, Brian Elliott, he and I were talking. He has a channel called Behind the Brand. He goes, Chris, you should really be utilizing shorts right now. I'm like, yeah, I see them popping up. Is this the thing? He goes, yes. And you need to do X, Y, and Z. And he got very tactical with me, like, this is what you need to do. After the call, I called up my team. I said, everybody, I want for the next month for us to just pump out shorts. And here's what you need to do. And I gave him the exact same thing that Brian told me to do. And my team keeps working on this. And I said, stop doing whatever else you're doing. Just work on short. And they do it. And they don't believe in it because it's like vertical video. That's stupid. It's a minute long. How do we tell the story? How do we teach anything? And they keep doing it, and we're not going anywhere. And I remember about 21 days into it, we're having a meeting. And they're like, Chris, do you still want to keep doing this? Should we abandon ship and go somewhere else? He said, yeah, keep doing it. Let's see what happens. And I swear to you, 2 or 3 days later, Mo, who's on the channel quite a bit, he's like, yo, dude, are you seeing this video? I'm like, what video? This video that's taken off. I'm like, no. And I keep looking for it. And I'm like, I only see this other video that's got 400,000 views. The one that you said has 200,000, I can't find. I wonder what's wrong. It's because in the time in which he decided to call me, and when I looked at the video again, it had grown by 200,000 views. We've never had anything grow that fast. It was our first bona fide viral hit. And then I am so excited. I'm like calling the team. I'm like, you see everybody? You want to quit. You want to quit before it gets good. And what we have to do is say we have to believe enough in our plan that there's an opportunity here. And instead of quitting when things don't work, we have to figure out what we need to do to make it work. And in that year, we grew by almost 1 million subscribers, mostly due to shorts. And that's just one example. And there are many, many examples like this. I'll give you another example from a business point of view. I told my operating officer, Ben, we need to switch over from monthly enrollment to quarterly enrollment. And we're going to close down the times in which people can enroll in our coaching program. He's like, okay. So like on the eve of us flipping the switch, he's like, Chris, I need you to look at some data. And he's going through line by line. He's very good at doing this. He's like, here's the churn rate for everybody that joins us on a monthly basis. 25% of them stay on, and they stay on for 4 months. My fear is if you force people to join on a quarterly basis and you close down the enrollment period to a week, the first week of every month, we're not going to have any business. And I said to him, Ben, I hear you. You make a lot of sense. This is really strong stuff that you're saying here. But let's just roll the dice. Let's see if it works. And he's like, okay. And you know what? We sold more enrollments than we ever had in that period. And he called me up right away. He's like, I was wrong, boss. I'm like, cool. So this is what I'm talking about. Like when you need to make some big innovative move in order to grow your company to the next level, you're going to have to try lots of weird things that are not going to work. We have this explicit agreement with each other. We want to make a lot of small bets, and I'm willing for 7 or 8 out of 10 of them to fail totally. We just need 2 ideas to work. And so we're not sitting here thinking we'll never try a new idea because we're afraid of failure. In fact, we embrace failure as part of it. And we say, it could blow up in our face. It'll be okay. But we have to be willing to try, to be brave enough to try.
Yeah, no, I have a similar story that really influenced my approach to building things. When you look at the first mission to the moon and you look at the line of when people when they took off from Earth and then when they made it to the moon, people think that it was just this kind of straight line there. But when you actually looked at the trajectory of it, it's just a wobbly line that's up and down, up and down, up and down thousands of times all the way to the moon. And the mission was successful, and it wasn't because they calculated it perfectly and they went from A to B as efficiently as possible. The reason why it was successful is because of correction. Constantly kind of like when the moments were down, they corrected it to get it back on track. And when they went off track, back to on track. And this kind of continual process of correcting things and getting things back on track, letting things break and then fixing them is oftentimes an overlooked part of the whole sort of founder journey. One thing you've touched on a lot too, which I think is another thing that people lose track of or they struggle with, is this concept of storytelling. I think that founders are oftentimes building a brand, and then when they think about their own personal story, their personal brand, they're not sure how these 2 things connect and are interwoven. And from a lot of the talks and the content that I've consumed from you, Chris, I've learned a lot about things like defining traits, enemies, friends, and how these are kind of defining elements of a story. And I know as a younger man, you kind of grew up with this passion for comic books, Marvel, and curious kind of how you look at like the founder journey and weaving that into your brand.
I think I was talking to one of my friends, Tim Malini, who's like the chief strategy director for one of these large multinational conglomerates. And he's like, brands aren't created. They're found. And the word found is very important because in the word found is founders, it's like they're connected. So when people are like, we're going to create a brand, brands are not created. We have to go back and figure out why this company existed in the very beginning. So if you go back in time, you say at some point, somebody found a problem and they wanted to provide a solution, and they were very passionate and they made this their thing to solve, and they worked on this. And as they became more successful, they would hire more people. It would start to grow and grow. And to such a point, the founder doesn't even know who works there anymore. They're no longer connected. And if you just do this over years and decades, eventually we forget who the founder was really and what their story was about. And they lose their way. They literally lose their way. And the people who grew with that brand say like, this no longer reflects what's going on. Like this car company no longer stands for excellence in engineering. It no longer stands for this kind of performance. And they then grow out of love. They fall out of love with the brand. And they lose their customers, then they lose their way. And then you'll see for a period of time, the financial reports will be great. They'll flatline and they'll go in decline. And that's when they start to freak out. So they bring in external consultants to come in and help them to rediscover the founder story, to point them back in the correct direction. Then they'll trim their product line. They'll change their messaging. They might go out with open hands and say, we're sorry, we messed up. We've lost our way. We're going to find our way back. And thank you for sticking in there with us. There was a great campaign that Domino's Pizza did to bring back their customers. They had heard so many complaints about their crappy pizza that they spent an incredible amount of time, energy, and money to re-engineer the pizza so that they think it's good. And what they did, and they did this pretty cool, they would go to a bunch of influencers. They're like, we're just going to give you pizza. If you love it or hate it, let us know. And they started to change people's mind about this. And so like Domino's lost their way. They became more about efficiency and getting you a pizza that tasted like cardboard. And today, you know, like I'm not ashamed to say it, like I actually like Domino's now. You know, they fixed some problems. Now, is it the best pizza in the world? No, it's not. But it's a vast improvement over the way it used to be made. And that's getting in touch with that. Now, when we talk about branding, it's a buzzword. It's misunderstood. And I'm trying to find a fun way to explain very complex concepts in a way that people can like, yeah, I can relate to. I understand that. And so I find all these parallels between comics and this way they're structured and the development and the telling of a personal brand. Lots of parallels. I'll give you a couple. I know you know some of them, but since giving that talk, it's evolved several iterations, okay? The first thing that you need to know is the most popular characters in pop culture and media and in comics have an incredible cast of villains. Some would say the villains have to be better than the hero because it gives us something to root for. The better the villains, the deeper our connection with the hero. And so many of us on social say like, well, I'm all for this, sunshine and kittens and love and peace. Well, you're saying things that are true but pretty useless. And they're very boring. So it's a much better strategy to say like, I'm for this, but I'm really against this, to identify who the villains are. And we need to find our arch nemesis, the exact mirror and polar opposite of who we are. So if you stand for sustainability, you need to look at companies who are truly destroying the planet and call them out by name. There's a gentleman, his name is Andrew Tate. You don't have to like him, but you have to respect his ability to command attention and focus. For a period of time there, he became the most searched person on the internet. And here's something that's brilliant about what he's done. Whenever he gets into a little bit of trouble, he says, it's the Matrix. And it's code word for all of us. Like, we're like, are we living in the Matrix? Are we being controlled and manipulated? And he taps into something without explaining to us what it is. And whenever he's asked in an interview, what is the Matrix? He goes, the Matrix is everywhere. He's like literally repeating lines from the film. It's all around us. And nobody wants to be imprisoned, especially in America where we value and champion freedom and free will. You just have to say the Matrix and we have a reaction. So every time something bad happens to him, he's like, the Matrix tried to shut me up. The Matrix tried to cancel me. And they could not do it. So he's tapping into something, right? And other companies have done this really well. Take, for example, Dr. Squatch. You know Dr. Squatch, the soap company?
Yep.
Okay. Dr. Squatch came out with this viral ad. And the one that got me involved in terms of like becoming a customer was like, you know, you're a man. You're not a dish. I'm like, what? And they throw a dish against a rock. Psh. You're like, you know, there's big soap and they're full of detergents and chemicals and you're not a dish. And so they created an enemy out of nothing. Like there was no such thing as big soap. Are you kidding me? So they used language that we're familiar with, big tobacco, big oil, right? And as an independent person who champions small brands and like loving the rebel spirit, we hate anything that's big. So all you have to do is call it big and you're done. And again, they trigger a response in us. And I'm like, you know what? I don't know if I need a new bar of soap, but I'm against big soap. For sure I am. So I go and buy the soap and I've been a subscriber for years now.
Sold. No, I love that quote too of, you know, brands are found. And I agree. Our job as founders is to get in touch with that story and to get in touch with the essence of our brands. Chris, this has been a ton of fun. I've learned a ton and I appreciate you sharing all these stories, these systems, these tools with the community. Folks, if you're interested in learning more from Chris, you be sure to check out his YouTube channel. Be sure to check out The Future, and also his book, Pocket Full of Dough. Chris, thank you so much for being here today. It's been a ton of fun, and I'm super grateful for you and all you're contributing to the world. It means a lot to me, and I know my team is a massive fan as well. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Matt. Keep doing what you're doing. I think you're trying to help a lot of people as well, and say hi to the team for me.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris.